All right, everyone. Hello and welcome into the first of many pre-draft videos that we're going to be doing, talking about prospects that could potentially be selected by the Minnesota Vikings in this year's NFL draft. I know it's really early to start doing this, but April is going to be here faster than you know it. I think we're less than 100 days away from the NFL draft taking place in 2023. And this is my favorite time of the year. It's like when you're in the off season, you don't have any, you don't have a horse in the race anymore. We got to start talking about team building. We've discussed the offense. We've discussed the defense. Now we're going to start talking prospects. We're going to do one of these maybe a week, and we're going to focus on prospects that I think could be in range of the Minnesota Vikings drafting at their current position, whether it's the first round, the third round. We'll talk about some potential second round prospects. It'll depend on how much time we have to get to as many as we can. Ultimately, we won't be able to cover them all. And I'm likely not going to be talking about any of the prospects that are pretty much a lock to go in the top 10, because I don't think the Vikings have the assets required to make such a move from the 23rd overall pick up into the top 10, but you never know. It's been done before. So I think for the most part, I've done many draft videos in years past. I have a whole playlist for, I think, the 2020 and the 2021 drafts. We're not going to do that. We're not going to focus on as many players as I can. We're not going to just flood the zone with all of this information. We're going to focus on players that I think could be selected by the Minnesota Vikings based on needs, based on their position in the draft. So there's going to be a lot of talent that we don't discuss, unless there's somebody that you want me to talk about. We could always do that if you have a suggestion. We're going to start with quarterbacks today. We're going to talk about Anthony Richardson, because I believe this is the only quarterback in the draft that the Vikings have a shot at getting in the first round. And honestly, after he's off the board, if we don't get him, I'm not really interested in anybody else. I know that there is a push by PFF from Tanner McKee out of Stanford. Why? I don't know. I haven't watched the tape yet, but I'm not too interested in anyone beyond Anthony Richardson. But we'll talk about Anthony Richardson today. So I have been asked this question a couple of times on this channel so far in the short goings of this offseason, if the Vikings should target Anthony Richardson. My philosophy has always been and will always be that you should be drafting a quarterback every single year until you hit. Once you find your Patrick Mahomes or your Joe Burrow or your Aaron Rodgers, then maybe you could calm down a bit with the drafting of the quarterbacks. I mean, just look at Bill Belichick. All those years he had Tom Brady, still drafted quarterbacks because he knew you had to. He ended up finding Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett. So it's something that you just really should be doing, because you never know what you're going to get. So, yes, obviously that it's going to depend on need, but I don't think you should pigeonhole yourself into need all of the time. It just really depends on value. How much do you really like the guy? And what are your plans going into the future? There's a lot of layers to this. It's not just a simple yes or no. But for me personally, I think if he's there, I think if it doesn't cost you a whole lot to move up to go get him, if you've got other moves that you've made prior to the draft to solidify other positions in order for you to not be a dumpster fire of a roster for the entirety of the season, yeah, I think you could. Now, more specifically to Anthony Richardson, the quarterback from Florida, he's on the list of first-round quarterbacks towards the bottom because he probably has more perceived flaws. I really like the skill set that he brings to the table. He's got a really strong arm. He's got a quick release, and he's mobile. He's good on his feet. He can run with the best of them. He's not a running quarterback per se, but that is in his arsenal of tools. He will not be one of those guys that is just hanging in the pocket waiting for somebody to get open. He can make plays go extended with his mobility. So that is always a plus. So those are things that I like, because those things are not teachable. You can't teach arm strength. You can't teach speed at the next level. Those are just those are just skills that you have. They can't be coached. Now, his perceived flaws are most likely going to be, recognizing defensive coverages, pre-snap reads, maybe a little bit with his, what you would say, throwing mechanics, things that can be changed, things that can be coached, things that can be taught at the next level. I'm fine with that because we have an offensive-minded head coach, and I would trust him more to do so than I would with the previous regime under Mike Zimmer and his coaching staff. Maybe more so, I'm not in line with his coaching staff that he had, because it was a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? Nepotism hires and best friend hires. But anyway, I digress on that point. Kevin O'Connell, I think, would be a good person, a good coach to bring in a rookie like Anthony Richardson to coach up. Now, the Vikings are in a prime position to do this year because Kirk Cousins is currently going into the last year of his contract. Now, Obviously, they're going to have to do something about that if they want to be competitive in free agency, because they're going to either have to extend him to free up some money this year, or they're going to have to trade him in order to free up a lot more money. But the problem with that is he has a no trade clause. I think Kirk Cousins really likes being in Minnesota. I don't really think he's interested in going somewhere else. So for him to waive the no trade clause, I think is unlikely, in if I could put it that way. So I think Kirk Cousins is here to stay. Whether or not you extend him to another season is up for debate. But you take Anthony Richardson in the first round, you get the 5th-year option for him being a first-round pick. So you've got a lot of friendly team control for the first 4 years of that contract. You know, the rookie deal is the best part about taking a quarterback in the first round. And then you have Kirk Cousins that can play for the 2023 season. Presumably you let him walk if you don't have him sign an extension, and then Anthony Richardson can take over next year. So that gives him one entire season to just ride the bench, learn from the sidelines, pick up the speed of the game, and then go through whatever learning process that he needs to do to adjust to the next level. So it's a good situation to be in when you don't have to force your first round quarterback to start in his rookie season. I know a lot of people want the young kids to get in to see what they can do. I don't want a quarterback controversy in Minnesota if Kirk Cousins decides that father time has caught up with him this year and he starts playing poorly, because I don't think Vikings social media could begin to handle that, because they already can't handle, you know, the whole quarterback thing for the last 4 years. But I guess it would be chaos. So if you're rooting for chaos, I guess root for that. But long story short, I think Anthony Richardson is a very intriguing prospect. You want to draft guys who are just athletically talented, who are athletic freaks, because you can mold the rest of it. So I think Anthony Richardson represents a good opportunity for the Minnesota Vikings, if they so choose to do so, to get out in front of the future of the quarterback position. Draft Anthony Richardson in the first round. You might have to move up a couple of spots to go get him, because there are a lot of teams in front of the Vikings in the first round this year that need a quarterback. I mean, there's just so many. Anthony Richardson might not even make it to the 15th overall pick. He could probably get scooped up pretty early. I think if we see a similar fall like a Justin Fields did a couple years ago, you're probably looking something about, you know, a team trading up to go get him, because they're like, oh, well, this opportunity didn't present itself, you know, in the early process of this. So there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then. But I think Anthony Richardson would be an interesting fit for the Vikings. And I think if they spent the 20th or the 23rd, or if they had to trade up to the 20th or 19th overall pick to get him, I wouldn't be upset about it. I think that would be an interesting move, and it would tell us a lot about their future plans if they did that. So let me know what you guys think of Anthony Richardson and the potential for him to be drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I understand that they are behind the 8 ball when it comes to their needs on defense this year. So the next couple of draft prospect scouting the draft videos are probably going to be defensive related. We'll focus on the corner position, focus on linebackers. Maybe we'll, you know, dip our toe into the offensive line pool. I don't know if that's a good idea, but I think a lot of the capital is going to be spent on defense, so that's where we will spend most of our time. Wide receivers too. We'll touch on 2nd and 3rd round wide receivers this year. So that's going to do it for me in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.